Hi, this is Joanne May, and I'm going to be talking you through this illuminated manuscript that I did with the theme of music. It's a quote by Victor Hugo. You'll see that if you didn't get a chance to read it on the front screen. I am using the materials of a 50% cotton paper. It's called Miton, which is a French name for a company that is making these papers available in all sorts of colors. Canson is the company, and the papers, as I mentioned, come in all sorts of colors. I decided to use this ivory color, which is a little more on the tan side than ivory, because I was trying to sort of get the impression that it is a manuscript from the Middle Ages, which you'll see in a few minutes that the music notation is from the Middle Ages. In fact, I took an exact notational page out of a book from the rare book collection in the Philadelphia Free Library to use as the notation, even though it really doesn't have anything to do with the quote. I thought that the style, the size, the scope of that musical page worked really well with this design that I came up with. So in addition to the paper, I do have 23 karat gold on the lettering. You'll see me apply that a little later. Because this project took several hours to complete, even after the design was finished, I wanted you to see the whole process, so a lot of it is sped up. This particular writing of the quote itself is double time. It says double time. It doesn't look like it's actually twice as fast as I did it, but it is definitely not the speed. I go really slow when I do my lettering. And later you'll see it even speeds up more so that it won't take so long for you to get through to see the process. And then if you have questions, feel free to contact me. I do read everything, and I would be happy to get back to you if there's something that I've not talked about or that you can't quite see in the video, what my process was. So in addition to that, I'm using India ink, and it is waterproof, so it leaves a permanent look, and it's a very dark black, and it leaves a nice shiny look to it if you get it in the light just right. So I really like that in combination with the gold leaf, because the gold leaf, of course, is very, very shiny, and it balances nicely with that. And I'm using watercolor for the colors of the words, the letters for music, and the leaves around the letter. That watercolor is artist quality. It's going to be light fast for years and years, and permanent. It's always good when you have something that has watercolor in it that you either finish the surface with lacquer or you keep it out of the light and put a glass over the front when it's being framed. So this design took me a long time to come up with. I wanted to use something related to music. The musical notation of the medieval period is what I've chosen, and it's just an interesting dichotomy between the modern look of the letters of music and the quote by Victor Hugo in the modern era, together with the historical, the long history of music. And that's why I also use leaves in the design of music. The letters of music are a modern look with gold, but the idea that music has been around since the beginning of mankind really is what I was kind of getting at, just like nature has been around for all of that time as well. So that was my idea of using leaves in the design. And you see some of the lines that I've used to make sure that my script is level. I don't always use lines. It depends on how the design is laid out, but because I'm using the musical notation, I will have staff lines, and those do have to be parallel and level. So I did decide to use the lines to help with my lettering as well. The gold leaf will be at the beginning and also in the center of this double lined S on the word silent, and there will be some of the leaves that will have gold and some of the berries. You'll see dots that have gold in them as well. So the script is not an ancient script. I had the opportunity to use black letter, which is what this original leaf or fragment of a musical composition that's in Philadelphia. It's what they were using for the Latin script of the hymn that this was from. That script was in black letter, and I debated about using a black letter script on this, but because the neumes, which are the notes, will be so prominent, I thought it might be a little bit difficult to read if it was in black letter script, so I used this Renaissance italic is what this is, and so it is easier on the eye. It's quicker to be able to read and understand what the phrase says, which is the whole point of making this design. Right here you see me having just a little glitch with that flourish that I was doing at the end of the T, and so I ended up having to draw it in a little bit, but I try not to have to do that unless something goes haywire. It flows better if it can be done all in one fell swoop. This next step in the process is to add sizing so that the gold leaf will stick to the paper. And the sizing that I'm using is called Instacol. It's a brand that is used. It's made in Germany. Kollner is the company that makes it, and Instacol has a substance to it so that it's thick when it goes on. I'm having to play with it a little bit and keep dipping so that I keep it wet enough. It's thick and not real wet. I'm trying to just float the Instacol onto the line that I want, where I want the gold to be. But what I discovered was, because my Instacol is old, it's about 3 years old, it wasn't sticking. When I was practicing with it a little bit, the gold wouldn't stick to it. I looked up the Kollner company, and lo and behold, they make something called an activator that you can put on after this base, and it's just a surface wetting and just enough to make the gold stick and still have that raised up look. But I didn't have any, so I thought, what else could I use? I was trying to solve this problem to be able to have some dimension to the gold while at the same time making sure that it would stick to the paper. And I thought I would try the size that I had bought for the gold metal leafing, which metal leaf is a thicker substance than gold leaf. Gold leaf is very thin, and I thought, well, if it sticks for this gold metal leaf, it should stick with the gold, and sure enough, it worked beautifully. What I have is a Speedball brand, and it has a picture of a Mona Lisa on the bottle, and it acts a little bit like white glue, a little bit thinner than what white glue would be. So after this dried, the Instacol base, I went over all of the Instacol with a very small brush and put that sizing on for the gold metal leaf just right over the top of it, waited 30 minutes, and it just stuck like a dream. It was really easy to use then. So the lesson I learned there is it doesn't always have to be just the process that you may have learned from somebody, or that you're using the products that somebody is advocating for you to use in doing gold leaf. And there are just probably going to be many alternatives for you. As long as it's sticky, it will hold the gold. And I liked that this was raised up a little bit, because that also helps the shine to be reflected in various ways rather than something that's flat on the paper. So it turned out really well, and I couldn't be more pleased with how much the 23 karat gold shines, always more than gold metal leaf, of course. And the other benefit to using 23 karat or 22 karat, you could go all the way to maybe 16 or 18 karat in the leaves that you purchase. You don't have to finish them off. If you use gold metal leaf that shines through mica or some less expensive sparkly sort of pigment, those have to be finished with a lacquer spray, or they will tarnish over time, and it won't take very long. If you let it go and it's exposed to the air, within a year probably you'll notice that there's tarnishing happening. So with 23 karat, 22 down to a lower karat, you'll be able to just do it just this much, no lacquer needed, and it will stay permanently shiny and not tarnish, as long as it won't get dirty or dusty over time. So the next step that I'm doing here is to add the leaves with my pointed pen. I didn't talk about the broad nib pen that I was using for the lettering of the quote. That was a, let's see, I think that was a 1 3/4 millimeter nib, and until the word silent, and I'm sure that one was larger, it was probably 2 millimeters for the width of the nib. This is a pointed pen, meaning that the only thing that touches the paper is the very tip, the very point. Although when you press this down, the ink flows through tines. There's a split in the middle of that nib, and it opens up as you add pressure, so that gives dimension to the leaves. If you can get a closer look, you can see that some parts of the leaves are very thin lines and some of them are thicker lines. I am now drawing the staff lines for the music in a rather bright red. This is, let me think, pyrrole red is what it's called, Pyrrol. And pyrrole red is a very bright red. When I use it to paint with, I don't need very much of it to be able to get a really brilliant red on white watercolor background paper. This I chose because red is the color that the medieval scribes used to write music notation. I was frankly rather surprised at how bright red the colors were when I was investigating photographs of these old manuscripts of medieval music. I thought, oh, maybe I should darken it up or use a brownish red color on this tannish ivory paper to make it look old, look like parchment, look like it's been preserved but not fully well preserved. No need. So much of the colors are really vibrant if the old manuscripts have been maintained and protected over time. So I thought, well, I might as well just go ahead. And I do think that it dulled down a little bit because of the color of the paper. The red on this darker ivory doesn't look as brilliantly red, plus the lines are very thin. So I think that the look of these neumes that I drew and the staff lines and the color of the red and then the black, it's actually quite authentic to what I was able to find in photographs of actual manuscripts of the medieval period. And here we go with ultramarine blue, my favorite color of blue. It's a little bit of a warm blue. It has a little rosy tint to it, although it's not purple. might in some light look a little bit purplish, but it's just the richest, most royal blue color. And I use it for a lot of painting. It's one of my all-time favorite colors. And I think it contrasts so nicely with the gold. So without going into any detail about the neumes, the musical notation, I did do more investigation than I had learned as a young music student in my bachelor's degree, where there was a slight mention of ancient music and how music notation developed over the history of mankind. And the 4-line staff that is used here for this particular piece of music is not what we use today. Today it's a 5-line staff, and the way these notes are formed is not understood by modern readers of music. So there's just too much to go into it now, but I did learn a little something more than what I had known previously about neumes and how to be able to sing them. This piece of music is an actual piece of music. It would have been sung as a hymn in Latin, and so it was kind of fun to touch a little bit on the history of this particular piece, and to think that together with the modern look of the calligraphy above and the quote by Victor Hugo just encompasses the impact that music has had on humankind forever, and probably will always in the future. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this rather fast walk through the development of this piece, and please do get in touch if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.